Hey everybody, welcome to a special coronavirus shutdown episode of Dr. Brian's Kitchen. During this coronavirus shutdown, I was missing bubble tea, and so I learned how to make my own. And I did a post about it on Instagram, and people wanted to know the process, so I decided to bring back Dr. Brian's Kitchen just for this purpose, in case you too want to learn how to make your own bubble tea during the coronavirus shutdown. So, first, you've got to find the boba, the Tapioca Pearls that make the bubbles. And I've got some water boiling here. I'm going to put in the amount that I think I want in one serving. And I'm going to let those bubble around in there. I'm going to give them a little stir until they float up to the top. And at that point, I'm going to dial the heat back and I'm going to let them boil for about 10 minutes. And while this is happening, as you can see, I've already started my tea. You could use whatever kind of tea you like. This is ginger peach turmeric tea, and I've got it steeping in this kind of martini shaker-like container, and you'll see why a little bit later. But let's see, the boba are starting to float up to the top, so that's exactly what we want. And when they're all up at the top, we will dial back the heat a bit now, like to medium, and we'll let those go for about 10 minutes. Now, while that's happening, I can tell you a little bit about the boba. These are Tapioca Pearls, and they come in a little bag like this. Not expensive at all, about $3. This is how they look when they're uncooked, and you probably are going to have to find like an Asian grocery or an Asian section of a really good grocery store to find them, but they weren't very hard for me to find, and they probably won't be very hard for you to find either. One thing you're going to need, though, in addition to the boba, is one of these big, wide straws. And that's really important if you want to be able to sip your tea and get some of the boba in each sip. A regular straw is not going to do it. You need a diameter of about half an inch or so, maybe even a little bit more. And so you've got to find these big, wide straws. You can find them sometimes at liquor stores that sell them for people who want to make frozen drinks and want to make sure that people can suck up the frozen drink with maybe crushed ice in there. You can find them maybe at the same Asian grocery that sells the boba, and you can find them online, and you can also find the boba online. But if in doubt, you can also, if you've got a bubble tea place that you like that normally is open but maybe isn't right now, in your town, when it is open again, if you want to be able to make this at home, you can ask them maybe where they get their straws. Or maybe you'll luck out like I did and get a couple given to you by the person who runs your local shop to get you by during the coronavirus shutdown. And then, of course, you're going to need a cup to actually put the finished product in when you're done. And you probably want it to be see-through like this because you want to be able to see the drink with the boba down there at the bottom, and especially as you get down low in the drink, you want to be able to see where the last remaining boba are, so you can make sure that you get them all before you finish the drink. And so then I think what we just have to do is wait another 7.5 minutes for the boba to finish boiling, and so I will come back when that's done and tell you about the next step. Okay, so the boba have been in the boiling water for 10 minutes, and what we're going to do now is turn the heat off, take the boba off the hot burner onto a cool burner, cover the boba, and we're going to let that sit for another 10 minutes. And during that time, the boba will cool, but also continue to steam and absorb some moisture, because what you want, as you know, if you're a bubble tea fan, is soft, chewy boba. And so during this time, there's an optional step that I'm not going to do, but I'm going to tell you about it in case you want to do it. What you could do right now is you could take some sugar and some water, about equal parts of each, maybe half a cup of sugar, half a cup of water, put them in another little pan like this, boil, bring that to a boil, and dissolve all of the sugar in the water, and then turn off the heat and let it cool down. That would be a simple syrup that you could make. And what you would do with that then is two things. One is, maybe two things. After the boba cool in the pot, as I'm showing now, you could do another 10 minutes or so in the simple syrup. So take the boba out of the pot that you're using to boil them initially and to let them cool and steam covered now, and then put them into your simple syrup for another 10 minutes or so to allow them to further cool down before you mix them into your finished product, and also to absorb some of the sweetness of the simple syrup. The reason that I'm not doing that step is a couple of things. One is I don't really need the boba in this case to absorb any additional sweetness, because I'm going to add some sweetened condensed milk to my finished product, and that will add plenty of sweetness for me. The other thing is I'm not going to store them. Sometimes you'll see recommendations that if you're going to try to make boba in advance and then store the boba, you want to do it in the refrigerator in simple syrup. But I've tried that, and what I've found is the boba still gets hard. And so what I've learned and what I've been told from the pros that helped me out when I was looking for the straws, that my local bubble tea shop in Lawrence, Kansas, High Tea, which is still serving online right now, even if you're in Lawrence, Kansas, looking for some bubble tea and you don't want to make it at home, you could get it from High Tea online. But they told me you really do probably want to just make however much boba you're going to use for the immediate serving that you're making, because it just does not seem to store very well, and it's going to probably disappoint you, would be my suggestion, and theirs, I think, if you try to store it in the fridge in the simple syrup. In a pinch, yeah, I've taken it out and had it be okay, but it just wasn't anywhere close to as soft and chewy as it will be when we're done with this process. So what I've learned is just make as much as I'm going to use right now. And even though it's kind of an involved process, I know if when I want to make some more, then I'll make some more. And if nothing else, if you maybe try this at home once and you think, gosh, that is really a more involved process than I probably want to go through to make my own bubble tea at home, then at least when you go to your local bubble tea place, or when you go to High Tea if you're here in Lawrence, Kansas, you maybe will have greater appreciation for what a bargain you're getting after you have gone through this whole process yourself. So I'm going to let the boba stay in this covered pot for another 6 minutes or so, and then I'll come back and we will finish it off and I'll tell you how it is. Okay, so the boba have now finished cooling and steaming in the covered pot. You can see the steam coming off there. So what I'm going to do now is take the lid off of this container where I've been steeping my tea. I'm going to put the tea bags aside. And then I've gotten some ice, big cubes out of my ice maker. I'm going to pour those into a martini shaker. And you want to use big cubes because you really don't want them to melt all the way. This is just to quickly cool the tea. Now, could you make the tea in advance and then chill it in the fridge? Yes, you could. You probably should. But I usually decide kind of on the spur of the moment that I want this, and so I usually have to do the quick cool method. About 20 seconds for me is cool enough without melting the ice too much to where the tea ends up too diluted. And so now I'm going to pour the tea out of this container into the container that I'm actually going to use for my finished product. All right, I'm going to set the martini shaker aside. Now I'm going to collect my boba out of the pot. Draining them as I go. I don't really want to add any water to the tea, just the bubbles. And if it helps the process to go a little bit faster for you, you can go like this. Just be careful not to pour any of the boba down the drain as you do it. You worked hard to make these. Don't want to lose any down your drain. Just a few more left in here. All right, and now the last ingredient, the sweetened condensed milk. And you can decide how much of this you want to add in. I like to add a good shot about like that, maybe just a little bit more. But you can add this to your taste, and you can always add more. So start small. Work your way up, and now I will give that a bit of a stir to mix the sweetened condensed milk around a little bit, and let's taste it and see how it is. It's delicious. It's creamy, it's sweet. The boba are soft and chewy. If you love bubble tea, try this at home. You'll either love it and want to keep doing it over and over, or like I said, at least it will give you greater appreciation for what a bargain you're getting at your local bubble tea shop. Thanks for joining me for this special bonus edition of Dr. Brian's Kitchen. And until the next special edition, whenever, if ever, there is one, enjoy.